Good evening and welcome to Across the Goal Line. I'm Luke Godissart. You can follow Across the Goal Line on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You're obviously listening to us on YouTube, so subscribe if you haven't already. But like Across the Goal Line on Facebook, follow at ATGL16 on both Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me on both Twitter and Instagram as well. My Twitter is at CoolhandLuke96, and then my Instagram is lgodissart96. That's LGODISSART96. And then, like I said, subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Today, I am going to be giving everybody my 2017 college football predictions, give you a little preview of what I think is going to happen, go through the AP Top 25 that was just released last Monday, August 21st, 2017, go through some games to watch week by week, give you guys my Heisman predictions as well, who I think will be a candidate come December. I'll go through 10 of them. I know only about half of those 10 players will make it to New York City come the middle of December, but I have 10 Heisman candidates who I think could have a chance to win the 2017 Heisman Memorial Trophy. I'll also go through my conference predictions, who I think will be playing each other in the conference championship for their respective conference, and then go through my bowl predictions, but only for the main New Year's Six bowl games. Like I said, if you haven't already, liked Across the Goal Line on Facebook or followed us on Twitter or Instagram. And it seems like nowadays everybody has at least one of those, if not all three. But if you haven't already, like I said, like us on Facebook, follow us on both Twitter and Instagram, follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well, and then subscribe on YouTube. If you would like to have or wear some of our merchandise around, well, first you gotta let us know, let me know if you would like to place an order for that merchandise. We have t-shirts and hats available, so hit me up if you would like to own a little piece of history for Across the Goal Line. Only a few people have merchandise, t-shirts or hats, maybe both. You guys know who you are for Across the Goal Line. So if you haven't, let me know if you would like some merchandise as well. What are you waiting for? Hit me up and let me know what you would like. Without further ado now, I'm going to get into my 2017 college football predictions. Give you, like I said, a little preview of what I think is going to happen, especially come playoff time for the college football playoff, which is going into its 4th year already this year. It's hard to believe, but yeah, 4 years, 3 years in the books, going into its 4th year. But mainly predictions for that. I mean, I'm going to predict who I think will be playing each other in the conference championship games as well, like I said, and then the Heisman, and some games to watch. But first, I'm going to just read off the teams that are in the preseason AP Top 25 poll from 1 to 25, and I'll say, well, there's only 4 teams that got first place votes. I'll read those off here in a minute, but I'll read off teams 1 to 25 and then their record last year, and then if I can think off the top of my head, because I just decided to put this in at the beginning of the show, if I can think off the top of my head, and I more than likely will, I'll bullshit about it a little bit longer than what I would like to, or what some people would like to hear or listen to, listen to me talk about it, but if I can remember, if they won their bowl game or they lost their bowl game or whatnot, or they lost some players, I'll get into that. Try to very briefly, but if you don't know me already, I do like to bullshit a lot. Without further ado, here's my 2017 college football preview. As I said, starting AP poll released on the 21st. Alabama was ranked number 1. They got 52 first place votes. They finished 14-1 this past season. They obviously lost to Clemson, who is coming in at number 5 in the AP top 25 for the preseason poll. They did not get any first place votes, surprisingly. I know they did lose to Deshaun Watson, but still, you got to give the team credit, who is coming off a national championship victory over one of the most prestigious programs in the whole country, in the Alabama Crimson Tide. So Alabama comes in at 1 with 52 first place votes, finished 14-1. Ohio State, who Clemson had beat in the Fiesta Bowl in the playoff in one of the semifinal games, comes in at number 2 with 3 first place votes. They finished 11-2, 11-1 during the regular season. They always lost at Penn State in that thriller in Happy Valley by a score of 24-21, and then they lost to Clemson in the Fiesta Bowl in that semifinal game, 31-0. They got shut out. Very surprising. Florida State, a team a lot of people had a lot of high hopes for this year. A lot of preseason national championship predictions for the Seminoles. They come on at number 3 with 4 first place votes. They finished 10-3 last year. A lot of people, were surprised they finished 10-3. They lost to North Carolina, I believe Wake Forest as well, and then Clemson, if I'm not mistaken. I know North Carolina for sure. I'm not 100% sure in the Wake Forest game, but like I just said a minute ago, I'm just going off the top of my head because I just decided to put this in at the beginning of the show. So Florida State comes in at number 3. They have a Heisman hopeful quarterback in DeAndre Francois. I'll get to him in a minute when I talk about my Heisman predictions. USC then, who won the Rose Bowl, the 2017 Rose Bowl, comes in at number 4 with 2 first place votes. Sam Darnold, a lot of people are talking about him already going to the NFL after the season because he's a redshirt sophomore this year, technically a junior in college. So you only have to have played 3 years of college ball before you can go to the NFL, declared to go to the NFL. So he could be a very, very high first-round pick next year, depending on how how the NFL season plays out this year. So USC comes at number 4. Don't be surprised if USC is the national champion after this year. They got a lot more coming back other than Sam Darnold on both sides of the ball and on special teams. So you got to give it to USC. They're finally getting back on track after a lot of those sanctions that they had following the Pete Carroll era. Clemson, as I said, they won the national championship this past year. They beat Alabama in that game. I just talked about it a minute ago. They come in at number 5 with a 14-1 record. Yes, they did lose one game last year. They lost on a game-winning field goal at home down in Death Valley to the Pitt Panthers. A lot of people were shocked about that, but that was the day Michigan also lost, and then some other team in the top 5. If you guys know, since you're listening, if you know, comment who the other team was in the comments below, or message me or something, because that day is the second weekend, I believe, in November. It might have been the third weekend now that I think about it. This is in the middle of November, I'll say that for sure. It was the first time since 1985, I believe, that 3 top 5 teams had lost on the same day. So Clemson and Michigan being two of those. I can't think of the other teams that are that third and final team. So if you guys know, let me know. Clemson comes in at 5. Another team that Pitt had beat last year, Penn State, they come in at 6. My Nittany Lions, they finished 11-3. It started 2-2 the week of the Minnesota game. They're thinking about firing James Franklin. Now he just got an extension till 2022, I believe. The Nittany Lions, a lot of people have high hopes for them this year as well, coming off a great season this past year. They did lose the Rose Bowl to USC, but they did win the Big Ten, their first ever Big Ten championship in a Big Ten championship game, if that makes any sense, because the Big Ten's only been playing Big Ten championship games since 2011, and Penn State had won 3 Big Ten championships prior to that in '94, 2005, and 2010. So they never had to play in a championship game to win. They just, they won it on the field in the regular season. So if that makes any sense, they come in at number 6. They also lost to Michigan, but then that Iowa loss that Michigan had the same day Clemson lost hurt the Wolverines and put Penn State in the driver's seat to win the East after they defeated Ohio State a couple of weeks before that at the end of October. A game that I was at, the best Penn State game, best game ever for any single sport that I've ever been to, and I've been to a shit ton of sporting events. So Penn State, they come in at 6. That third loss would have been to USC then if you guys were thinking about that third loss. Oklahoma, they come in at number 7. Brand new head coach in Lincoln Riley. Bob Stoops, surprisingly stepped down at the beginning of June. I thought there was something fishy there in Norman, but who knows? But Lincoln Riley takes over the Oklahoma Sooners. Baker Mayfield's back, so if he has a good season, Oklahoma could win the Big 12, and could be in the college football playoff this upcoming season. Washington, if I can talk this evening, they were in the college football playoff this past year. They lost to Alabama in the one semifinal game down in Atlanta, the Peach Bowl. They come in at number 8. Wisconsin, who lost to Penn State in the Big Ten title game, they come in at number 9. And then to round out the top 10, the Oklahoma State Cowboys, who really, they were good back in the day, but the Oklahoma State Cowboys that I know is the Mike Gundy, I'm a man, I'm 40. Well, Mike Gundy is still a man, hopefully, and he's 50 now. But he's had that program right where he wants it. Couple of seasons, yeah, he probably would have liked to have done better, but with Bob Stoops still in Norman, and now he's not. I think now might be the time, and especially with Stoops, Oklahoma had won or shared part of the Big 12 for like the past 10 or 11 years, if I'm not mistaken on that. So, but now with Stoops gone, both Texas and Oklahoma have brand new head coaches this year. I think Oklahoma State, if they can play good football all season long and recruit well for the next couple of years, Oklahoma State, I think they'll be in the driver's seat for the Big 12 for the near future. Michigan comes in at 11, Auburn at 12, LSU at 13, Stanford at 14, and Georgia at 15. The 16th ranked team to start off the season is the Louisville Cardinals, and Heisman Trophy winner from last season, Lamar Jackson. They did finish 9-4. They lost to LSU in Citrus Bowl down in Orlando. A game that a lot of people thought Lamar Jackson would have took care of the LSU Tiger defense, but he didn't, because you go back and look at previous Heisman Trophy winners before him, they normally don't play well in bowl games. I don't know what it is, but that trend, didn't stop, and it kept going this past year when Louisville lost LSU. And both teams this weekend, it's actually the first weekend of the college football season, first unofficial weekend of the college football season, because there was a couple games this past weekend. Nothing real too big, so I'm not going to get into it, but Louisville plays Purdue, I think a tough game because it's a neutral site game in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. And then LSU, they also play a neutral site game against BYU. It's actually supposed to be in Houston, Texas, but due to Hurricane Harvey that hit the Houston area, that game has been since moved to New Orleans at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. So Louisville, as I said, they come in at 16. Florida's at 17. They play Michigan this weekend in Dallas. I'll get into some of these games as well in my Week 1 predictions. Be sure to keep an eye out for that. Probably today is Tuesday, August 29th. Probably I'll have this video uploaded, I'm thinking later tonight, and then tomorrow night I might even record my Week 1 predictions after I get done finishing up this session, and I'll definitely have this one up tonight then, and then I'll have my Week 1 predictions up tomorrow with all my Week 1 predictions and all the good games, because Week 1 it seems like every sport, they try to go big or go home, to get people to watch it and whatnot. But I really love college football more than I do the NFL. But football's football. I'll watch it regardless. But there's some good ass games this weekend. And like I said, I'll get into that I'll get into that in that other video. So be sure to go keep an eye out for that, and be sure to go check that out when I put it out on YouTube. So Florida's at 17, like I said, they play Michigan. Miami, Florida is at 18. South Florida is at 19. So from 17 to 19, you got 3 teams in the state of Florida. Kansas State's at 20. Virginia Tech, who plays West Virginia, they are back-to-back at 21 and 22. So Tech's at 21 and WVU's at 22, and then another Big 12 team in the Texas Longhorns and new head coach, what's his name? Tom Herman. Forgive me on that, Texas Longhorns fans. I was just talking about it a minute ago when I was talking about Oklahoma and Bob Stoops stepping down. But please forgive me on that. Sometimes I'll lose my train of thought on here if you haven't noticed already. Washington State ends at 24. Mike Leach has done one hell of a job after leaving Texas Tech and then going up to Pullman, Washington with the Cougs. And then the 25th and final ranked team for the preseason is the Tennessee Volunteers. TCU also got some votes alongside Utah, Notre Dame, Boise State, Northwestern, Pittsburgh, and Oregon. So, as I said, the first unofficial weekend of the college football season is this upcoming weekend, August 31st through September 4th. I'm going to get into some games to watch now. Really, I'm just going to go down through the list from what I have week by week. And especially for these Week 1 games, I'm going to be predicting them in that Week 1 predictions video. So, like I said, be sure to go check that out. But August 31st, Ohio State goes to Bloomington, Indiana. It might be the biggest game in Indiana football history. 2 Big Ten teams have never played against each other on a Thursday or a Friday night. This game's on Thursday night, so especially with Indiana having a new head coach in Tom Allen and their former head coach Kevin Wilson now being the new Ohio State offensive coordinator. Like I said, it might be the biggest game in Indiana football history. Maryland goes to Texas, and then that Michigan-Florida game, as I said, is also this Saturday afternoon at 3:30 from Arlington, Texas, from Jerry World. Florida does have 7 players suspended for that game, so especially there's been a lot of trash talk for this matchup. These two teams did meet up at the end of the 2015 season, and Florida lost to Michigan in the Citrus Bowl pretty bad. Um, excuse me. Like I said, I believe the score was 40-7, but too sure on that. Another game then this upcoming weekend, Western Michigan goes out to Los Angeles to play the Trojans of USC. That Louisville-Purdue game's in Indianapolis. Florida State plays Alabama in probably one of the biggest opening weekend games in college football history, since Florida State is the third-ranked team to start the year off, and Alabama is the #1 team in the country. That BYU-LSU game, like I said, is supposed to be in Houston, has been since moved to New Orleans due to Hurricane Harvey. Texas A&M, excuse me. Like I said, I don't know what the hell my deal is. I can't talk late at night for some reason. Texas A&M, they also go to Southern California to play UCLA. And then that West Virginia Tech game is Sunday night, and then the Tennessee Georgia Tech game is Labor Day night. So keep an eye out for those games coming across your TV. Iowa State then hosts Iowa on September 9th. Cincinnati goes to Michigan. Louisville goes to North Carolina, and then Pitt comes to Happy Valley as the Nittany Lions try to get revenge from last year's 42-39 loss. Nebraska, they try to go 2 in a row against Oregon as they go to Eugene. They beat them at home last year in Lincoln. Mike Riley, he's played Oregon a lot since he was the former head coach at Oregon State. They had the Civil War up there in the state of Oregon, so he's used to the Ducks. Auburn goes to Clemson. Georgia goes to Notre Dame. Those two teams haven't played each other since 1981. Oklahoma then goes to Ohio State, probably the biggest game of the second weekend of the season. And then Stanford goes to USC. Week 3 then, Oklahoma State goes to Pitt. So Pitt really has 2 tough tests. Week 2 and 3, they're going to be playing 2 teams in the top 10. So they host the Cowboys on September 16th. Wisconsin goes to BYU. Clemson goes to Louisville. This game last year determined the Atlantic Division in the ACC. Which was, I was going to say, a lot of people know Clemson did win that game because, as I said earlier, Clemson only lost 1 game last year, and lost to Pitt at home. But then Clemson went on to win the national championship anyway. So be sure to keep an eye out on that game. Miami goes to Florida State. 2 big games in the ACC. Then week 3, then Texas goes to USC. Basically, the 2006 national championship game was basically a home game for USC because they played at the Rose Bowl, home of UCLA, which is 10 miles away from the Coliseum. But Texas goes to USC, and this is the first matchup since that 2006 national championship game, which was won by the Texas Longhorns, Mac Brown and Vince Young, by a score of 41-38. Everybody remembers Young running into the corner of the end zone there and sealing the deal for Texas against a very, very good USC team back in the day there that was going for, I believe, 3 national championships in a row, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been 2 and 3 years, something along those lines. But I'm pretty sure it's 3. They're going for a 3-peat and they lost. Week 4 then, Penn State goes to Iowa City to play Iowa. UCLA goes to Stanford. Notre Dame goes to Michigan State, and then Washington goes to Colorado. Week 5, Clemson goes to Virginia Tech. That's Week 5 is September 30th weekend, so you'll have games on the 28th, 29th, and 30th. Week 6, LSU goes to Florida. This game was supposed to take place in Gainesville last year, but then due to a hurricane in October last year, it got moved until the middle of November last season to Baton Rouge. A game Florida still won, but they had to fix up the schedules then, so LSU didn't get 2 home games in a row against the Gators. So Florida finally gets to host LSU on October 7th. The battle between Big Brother and Little Brother in the state of Michigan will also take place as Michigan State goes to Ann Arbor to play Michigan. Last time Michigan State went to Ann Arbor, Michigan State won on a botched punt, and that botched punt was returned for a touchdown, and Michigan State won the game off of that. So as time expired, I should say. So another big game in the Big Ten is Wisconsin and Nebraska. This game determined the Big Ten West last season, and then a week later after that, the Red River rivalry, Oklahoma plays Texas. It's going to be the first time since the '98 season that Bob Stoops is not coaching the Oklahoma Sooners in this game. Oregon also goes to Stanford, and then Ohio State goes to Nebraska. So 2 weeks in a row, Nebraska gets 2 tough tests in Wisconsin and Ohio State. Week 8 then, Oklahoma State goes to Texas. I think could be a preview of the Big 12 title game. With the Big 12 not having divisions, they'll take the top 2 teams. Still playing Dallas actually play at a neutral site for the Big 12 title for the first time in 7 years. I don't care what the game's being played at. Michigan also goes to Penn State that weekend. It's going to be a whiteout game for Penn State, so it's going to be, other than the Pitt game, I think for Penn State the biggest home game they do have to go to. Penn State does have a tough stretch here, and I'm going to get into it, I guess, here in a second, because they host Michigan on October 21st. They go to Columbus to play Ohio State on the 28th, and then they also go to East Lansing to play Michigan State on November 4th. So 3 weeks in a row, Penn State has 3 really, really tough games. Week 8 as well, Louisville goes to Florida State, and then USC goes to Notre Dame. Week 9, Georgia goes to Florida, in the Florida-Georgia game. Penn State, as I said, goes to Ohio State. This game last year determined the Big Ten East. Penn State won it 24-21. Week 10 then, LSU goes to Alabama. It seems like ESPN College Game Day is there every single year for this game, whether the game's in Baton Rouge or Tuscaloosa. Penn State goes to Michigan State that weekend as well. And then Bedlam, surprisingly, is at the beginning of November. This game is either at the end of November or the first weekend in December, but it is at the beginning of November this year for the first time in I don't know how long. You have to go back and look at previous Oklahoma and Oklahoma State schedules to really, really see when that game took place. But Ohio State also goes to Iowa. The Bedlam game is always a fun game to watch. So if you're not watching that LSU Alabama game or one of these other games, turn that Oklahoma State game on come November 4th. Ohio State, as I said, goes to Iowa City that weekend as well to play the Hawkeyes, and then the battle for the Little Brown Jug, Minnesota goes to Michigan. Virginia Tech also goes to Miami, Florida. And then week 11, Veterans Day weekend. So shout out to all our U.S. military there. Notre Dame goes to Miami, Florida. So really 2 weeks in a row for Miami, Florida. Then they have 2 tough games in Virginia Tech and Notre Dame. Notre Dame, a team that only plays they're still considered an independent, even though they are part of the ACC, but they only play about five ACC games a year. Iowa goes to Wisconsin also that weekend, and then Florida State goes to Clemson. And I think that could be, especially with Florida State supposed to be so damn good this year. I think that could be that game could determine the Atlantic Division in the ACC. Week 12, then we're getting towards the end of the schedule, and then after I get done going through these games to watch, I'm going to be getting into my Heisman predictions. So we're week 12 now. If you lost me, if you got tired of my voice, or you actually turned the video off because I keep messing up, sorry. Texas goes to Morgantown to play the West Virginia Mountaineers. Nebraska also goes to the eastern part of the country to play Penn State. UCLA and USC meet up in LA. Basically a home game for both teams, 10 miles apart. Michigan then goes to Wisconsin, and then week 13 rivalry weekend, the Iron Bowl, Alabama and Auburn, Florida State and Florida, West Virginia and Oklahoma, Notre Dame and Stanford, Washington State and Washington, and then the game between the Ohio State University and the Michigan Wolverines. Ohio State goes to Ann Arbor in a game I think Jim Harbaugh really wants to win. I don't think if he loses this game, his job's going to be on the line, but because I have heard that if he doesn't beat Michigan, sometime here soon, his ass is going to be out the door. Well, Harbaugh really has gotten Michigan back on track to the way a lot of fans, and he's gotten them back to the way fans want the Michigan program to be run, and he's gotten them back on track way sooner than a lot of people would have thought would have happened. So the game, Ohio State and Michigan, November 21st. Game's on Fox this year too. ESPN gave up the rights to Fox. Fox bought the rights, but that's the least of my worries. What channel the game's on, I could really care less as long as it's on TV or I'm at the game, one of the two. So that game is November 25th, and then a week later, the first weekend in December. And a big reason why that Bedlam game is at the beginning of November now is, like I said, the Big 12 has a conference championship game again, so that game is going to be the first Saturday in December. So, and we could, that Bedlam game, since the Big 12 doesn't have divisions, could be a preview of the Big 12 title game as well. So, but those championship games are going to be on December 2nd. That is the first Saturday in December this year. The Pac-12 is going to be the night before on the 1st. And then, as I said, every other conference, that conference title game is going to be on December 2nd. And then the, I think it's the Conference USA. It might be the Sun Belt. I'm pretty sure it's Conference USA. No, it's Sun Belt, excuse me, because I remember now the Conference USA has a championship game. The Sun Belt, they do not have a title game. They have regular season games that day, December 2nd. So whoever's going to be in first place at the end of the day is going to be crowned conference champion. And then a week later, the same day, as the Heisman ceremony, December 9th, the Army-Navy game is going to be taking place from the Lincoln Financial Field down in Philadelphia. So then a week later, bowl games will be starting December 16th, and then they'll be ending on January 8th, 2018 with the 2018 College Football National Championship game. And I'll be getting into those New Year's 6 games plus the playoff games in a bit. But now I'm going to get into my Heisman predictions. This is at the beginning of the show. I got 10 players. I'd say only about, maybe a little less than half. Probably about only 4 of them are going to be called to New York City to attend the ceremony, but they'll fill out the rest of the card probably till 6 or 7, maybe 8. Just depends on how the season plays out, for all these teams and players. But the number one guy on my list at the moment is Lamar Jackson, mainly because he won the Heisman Trophy last season. He did throw for 3,500 yards and 30 touchdowns, but he also ran for 1,500 yards and 21 touchdowns on the ground. So I think if he can do what he did last year, I think he has a strong chance of repeating. There's only been one player to ever repeat, and that's Archie Griffith back in the early '70s with Ohio State. J.T. Barrett, speaking of Ohio State, is number 2 on my list. Seems like he has been in Columbus forever, but if he's gonna play, if he plays this year like he has the past 3 years, I think it's going to be enough to lead Ohio State to Indianapolis, to a Big Ten title, and into the college football playoff, and maybe the national championship. We'll have to see. Stay tuned for the end of the show. Sam Darnold then is number 3 on my list. He really came on for the Trojans after they started the season 1-2, and then they finally benched Max Brown, who is now at Pitt. He's looking to be Pitt's starting quarterback. He did finish the season strong with 3,100 yards passing. He had 31 touchdowns as well. He did have 9 picks, but the Pac-12 was really competitive last year for the first time in a while, so I really don't look at those 9 interceptions. He'll also, be a huge key. I think just as JT, is for Ohio State, should be for Ohio State this year. So I think if Darnold plays well, if both Barrett and Darnold play well, I think both of these teams, they could lead both of their teams to their respective conference title and maybe a berth in the college football playoffs, and then maybe face each other in the national championship game. Like I said, stay tuned for the end of the show. But number 4 on my list then is Saquon Barkley from Penn State. He was a key piece as well for the Nittany Lions this past year, for a team, I should say, that won 2016 Big Ten championship. And then they ended up losing the Rose Bowl. Yes, I know they lost the Rose Bowl to USC on a game-winning field goal, but he did run for 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns last year. And I think if he runs for that many again this year, Penn State's going to be back in the mix, for the playoff. And in the meantime, if he does do that as well, run for 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns, because he only needs 1,361 to break Evan Royster's all-time Penn State rushing record. So if he does that, he's going to be Penn State's new leading rusher in program history, which I think a lot of people would like to see happen, because I think a lot of people can agree with me that Saquon Barkley is one of the best running backs Penn State has ever seen. Baker Mayfield then, as I said, with Lincoln Riley, at the beginning of the show, with him now as the head coach rather than as offensive coordinator. I know he's still calling the plays, but I think, especially with Riley being younger and Stoops, I think their connection can be better than what it was. And don't be surprised if he's sitting in New York City, maybe even lifting the Heisman Trophy above his head come December. Jalen Hurts then comes in at 6, and then DeAndre Francois comes in at 7. Hurts and Francois actually meet up this weekend. As I said, Alabama plays Florida State in Atlanta to kick off the year, and I think that game, I don't know who I'm going to pick yet, but it's either going to be a real low-scoring game with the defenses making every single stop, or those guys, they're going to let the ball fly, and we're going to get a early look at what's to come this upcoming season. So we'll just have to see. Hurts, he does have a new offensive coordinator in Brian Dable, coming down from the New England Patriots, after he did go through 2 offensive coordinators this past season in Lane Kiffin for the whole entire season, and and up until the semifinal game against Washington, and then he left the week before the national championship game. So Steve Sarkisian, then the former USC and Washington head coach, who is now the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. They're sure as hell going to need it, because Kyle Shanahan really fucked up that game for the Falcons. So there's a connection between the Patriots and Falcons here with offensive coordinators. But Steve Sarkisian, with Hurts going through both of those, I think it was a little too much on a young quarterback. I think now getting Dable from New England, who's worked with Tom Brady, one of the best ever. Um, you know, Hurts, he could also be lifting the Heisman Trophy above his head come December. We'll just have to see. But then with DeAndre Francois as well, a lot of people are saying he's going to be better, or he might be better than Jameis Winston, who already won a Heisman Trophy at Florida State playing quarterback, and then ended up being the #1 overall pick in the 2015 draft by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we'll just have to see, but we're going to get a real strong look at both of these guys this Saturday night in Atlanta. Bo Scarborough, he comes at number 8 for me. He's the running back for Alabama, so we're going to be getting a little glimpse of him as well because he plays for Alabama. Alabama, like I said, they play Florida State this weekend, so I think everybody's going to be watching the game. If you're not, I don't know what the hell you're going to be doing, but that game is going to be one hell of a football game. And then Mason Rudolph and Shane Buechele round out 9 and 10 for me. Two Big 12 quarterbacks. And like I said, Oklahoma State, that Oklahoma State-Texas game in the middle of October, it could be a preview of the Big 12 title game, come early December. We'll just have to see. But those are my Heisman predictions. I still have to get into my conference predictions and then my bowl predictions. Only the main 6, only the New Year's 6. So, and like I said, for conference predictions, I'm only going to tell you guys, and I'm going to fly right through it, to be honest with you, who I have playing in the conference title game. So the ACC, I have Florida State playing Virginia Tech. In the American Athletic Conference, I have South Florida playing Houston. The Big 12, speaking of Texas and Oklahoma State, looking at my notes, I do have Texas and Oklahoma State in a rematch in the Big 12 title game in Arlington, Texas, come December 2nd. The Big 10, I have a rematch between Ohio State and Nebraska. Conference USA, I have Old Dominion going up against Louisiana Tech. The MAC, I have Ohio playing Toledo. The Mountain West, I have a rematch of last year's Mountain West title game between Wyoming and San Diego State, a game that was won by San Diego State. And in the Pac-12, I have Washington and USC. The SEC, I have Georgia and Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart finally going to be going up against his old boss and Nick Saban. I have those two teams meeting in Atlanta for the SEC title. And then in the Sun Belt, as I said, the winner is going to be determined on December 2nd, as all conference members will still be playing regular season games. So whoever ends up winning those games, come late in the year, whoever's in first place at the end of the day is going to be the Sun Belt champion for the regular season. And then teams who will not be playing in a conference championship game because they are independents are UMass, BYU, and Army. Now Notre Dame is also an independent. I do not know if they did say we're 12-0, if they would play in the conference title game. I'm not sure on that because when they were 12-0 back, it was the 2011 season, 2012 national championship game. They went and played. They were not a part of the ACC then. They did get blown out by Alabama in that national championship game, so I'll throw it in there to make some Alabama Crimson Tide fans happy and piss off some Notre Dame fans. So, I mean, that's all I have for looking at my notes here. That's all I have for conference predictions. Like I said, I was gonna fly through it there, and then finally, the last thing on today's video. For my 2017 college football preview is my bowl predictions, and I'm only going to predict the New Year's 6 because if I went through every single bowl game, I don't even know how many bowl games there are anymore. There's too many to count, I'll tell you that. There's probably around 40 if I had to guess, but I'm only going to predict the New Year's 6. And those are the Cotton Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Peach Bowl, and then you have the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl as semifinal games for the college football playoff. And then you have the national championship game, which is also in Atlanta, Georgia, at the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, where the Atlanta Falcons are going to be playing at. Too bad Chick-fil-A's are closed on Sundays. But the Cotton Bowl, I have Oklahoma going up against Georgia. The Fiesta Bowl, I have Texas going up against Nebraska in a Big 12 rematch when Nebraska was still part of the Big 12. The Orange Bowl, then I have Penn State going up against Virginia Tech. The Peach Bowl, I have Washington going back to Atlanta to play Louisiana Tech. I think they'll leave Atlanta and go back up home to Seattle, and they'll celebrate on their way home. I think they'll beat Louisiana Tech in the Peach Bowl, as they lost to Alabama in the Peach Bowl last year. So, and then in the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl, the two semifinal games for the playoffs, I have Alabama going up against USC in the Rose Bowl, and then I have Ohio State and Florida State in the Sugar Bowl. You guys can guess. I'll give you a couple seconds who you think I'm going to have in the Rose Bowl and Sugar Bowl. And in the meantime, I'll say this now so I don't have to say it at the end. Be sure to like Across the Goal Line on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at ATGL16 and Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also have an email account if you would like to email us. It's acrossthegoalline2016@gmail.com. And time's up for anybody who was trying to guess. Well, actually, I'll give you a couple more seconds. My Twitter and Instagram, my Twitter is at CoyanLeak96, and then my Instagram is Godissart96. So I gave you a couple extra seconds. Time is up now. My national championship game prediction is going to be the Ohio State Buckeyes, going one-on-one, toe-to-toe with USC Fighting Trojans in Atlanta, Georgia on January 8th in the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And my pick to win that game, as of now, August 29th, 2017, OHIO. I think Ohio State will defeat USC in the 2018 National Championship game. So with that, I'll see you guys in my next video then. And I'm going to be previewing week 1, as I said earlier in this video. So as I said, OHIO, go Bucks.